Welcome to the NBA Carousel, brought to you by Sideline Sports in conjunction with Fantasy and Flavors. I'm your host, Megan Price. The playoffs are in full swing, and even a couple of the first round series have already wrapped up. Boston and Miami are on their way home, and the Lakers, Portland, and the Knicks are all struggling. We gear up for the matchups that we've been waiting for all year: Brooklyn versus Milwaukee. But let's start with the number one team in the NBA. We have Will Vogel covering the Utah Jazz. Hi, Will.
Hey Megan, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Just watching some other games around the association before the Jazz Grizzlies game starts.
Who are you watching right now?
I am currently watching the Hawks Knicks game, and they are showing, luckily in the corner, which is nice, the score of the Wizards 76ers game.
You want to run down the scores real quick?
So Philly is losing by 4 to the Wizards, and they are playing without Joel Embiid, which is definitely hard. And it's a closeout game, but I still think Philly is the better team. And then you got Atlanta's playing New York, which is a 3-1 series. And honestly, I thought it was going to go to 6 or 7, but the Knicks have a lot of pressure on them tonight, especially being home, and it's a closeout game.
Right.
So, honestly, as a Hornets fan, I hate the Hawks, and I don't really hate the Knicks, but personally, I think Atlanta's the better team, just by a smidge.
I do too. Well, let's talk about Utah a little bit. So right now the series is 1-3, and so Game 5 is about to start.
I want to say in like an hour and a half, my time.
So Memphis took game 1, but Utah was without Donovan Mitchell. As soon as Donovan Mitchell came back, it seems like the series kind of almost wrapped up. They haven't been able to catch a win. And so talk to me about game 3 and game 4.
So game 3 was, I forgot to write down the score. I should have written down the score.
It's okay. It's
But-
Utah had 121 and Memphis had 111.
Okay, so it was a 10-point win. Gobert had a double-double. Conley had 27 points. Mitchell had 29 points. Clarkson had 15 points off the bench. So basically, regular season Utah Jazz numbers for Gobert and Clarkson. And it was nice to see Conley score in the 20s again. And then Mitchell is bound to always score in the 20s. But it looks like Conley is like back to his old youth days. But it's funny because in his old youth days, he would never score 20 plus. He would be the assist guy and maybe every once in a while get a 20-point game.
And would be playing for Memphis, actually.
And would be playing for the other team.
Right, correct. And so let's see what else. Ja had 28 points, 7 assists, and then 3 rebounds. Brooks had 27 points. Allen had 17 points, and then Jonas had 10 points. So from what I'm looking at on these stats, it just looks like Utah has that bench depth. Like they have more production. You know, like you said, Conley had 27, Mitchell had 29, Bogdanovich had 15, Gobert had 15, Clarkson had 15. Like that's hard to beat right there. And I think that's exactly why they're the number one team.
Exactly. When your starting 5 scores double digits against a team that only 3 maybe of their starters scored double digits, you're going to win majority of the time if all 5 of your starters score double digits.
Absolutely. So you expect this series to wrap up tonight?
Well, the Grizzlies are home, so I was hoping a 6-game series, but you know what? Like you said, the bench depth of Utah's way too much. I think the series ends tonight.
Okay. Well,
because the Grizzlies still have room to grow. I know Brooks is a great player. Valanciunas is helping in the center position. Ja's only in his second year. They're only going to get better and better, Memphis. They're going to get better and better. The youth is going to get better and better. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Grizzlies in the playoffs in the next few years. I think they're a great young team, and they're only getting better, like I said.
Absolutely agree. So, do you think Utah has, everyone has talked about how great Utah is in regular season, but they haven't exactly proved to the test of time in the playoffs. So, do you think this is the year that they go further?
There's a lot of good teams out there. There's a
Indeed.
lot of good teams out there. You got a good Phoenix team. I know Chris Paul was shaken up yesterday, but they still got Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, and other role players. Then you got Nuggets who have Jokic, Porter, Aaron Gordon, and then you got Portland who's got Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Melo, other good players. And then you also got, you can't count out the Lakers, even though I think they're going to lose their next game.
Right.
And then you got Luka and the Mavs. If Porzingis could get back to where he was playing like the unicorn, then it'll be tough. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a conference finals appearance.
Okay. Okay.
But
I would love to see that.
the Nuggets and the Jazz, I think, are the biggest threats. The Nuggets, Jazz, or I'm sorry, not the Jazz. I'm covering the Jazz. My bad, guys.
Mhm.
The Nuggets, the Blazers, and the Suns are the biggest threats.
Blazers. I agree.
Because the Blazers are a scary team no matter what. Dame
I
is
agree.
always ready for the competition.
If they get hot offensively, because they don't play a whole lot of defense, but Utah, I mean, they do play defense. They have Gobert, but I mean, they don't play a ton of defense. So
No, Gobert's
wonder
their
what
main
we'll see that
defender.
series actually, Utah and Portland. So, well, Will, thank you so much for coming on. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and we'll have you back on next week because I'm sure you guys are going to still be in the playoffs.
I think we'll still be there. Thank you guys. I hope to see you all next week. Let's see, Yep, I'm free. I'm pretty sure. But you guys can find me here covering the Utah Jazz throughout the playoffs as long as they're in it, hopefully. And then you can find me on The Gauntlet, hosted by James Tatum on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk football and have the sports tart of the week, NFL player of the week, different topics. And then we got this sip off hosted by Megan Price on Saturdays, but for a little while, it's going to be on Thursdays.
Correct.
And so look forward to that. I unfortunately don't think I'll be on tomorrow night, but look for me in future times. So yeah, guys, enjoy the NBA playoffs. I know I am.
Thank you so much, Will. We'll see you next week. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and go to a team that unfortunately is going home. We have Jen covering Boston. Ooh, we got a little connection. There we go.
Hey, sorry. Let me step outside.
No
I
problem.
was refreshing myself. How are you tonight, Miss Megan?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good, thank you.
And so, unfortunately, you guys are going home, but there's been some big news today.
Big news out of Boston all week.
Right.
But I was seeing if anything new would come up since I last refreshed. So as we all know, Brad Stevens is stepping up into Danny Ainge's position. So the rumors already abound that of who's going to be the new coach. Right. So according to Adrian Wojnarowski, we've got Jason Kidd. We've got Lloyd Pierce. We have, according to Mark Bernard and Vincent Goodwill, both of NBC Sports, Boston and Chicago, Chauncey Billups, which is interesting to me.
Oh, that is.
We also, and then Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated, he's suggesting the Nets assistant coach, Ime Udoka. And then we've also got in-house Jerome Allen, who's a potential. We've also looking at, according to Bleacher Report, Sam Caswell. Now, Sam doesn't have as much coaching experience as the other guys do, but he's been coaching since 2009. He retired from the NBA after 15 years playing in 2008. So still not bad. Then we also have, the rumors of who's going to be in the roster next year. Of course, Fournier's up, Kemba's up. Then we've got, everything that went down in Boston this past weekend with the stomping on the Leprechaun, and then a cult fan showing their derriere once again. And I get they were defending their team, but there's no need to cause physical harm to anyone.
Right.
And especially with some of the history that Boston does have.
Right. Definitely.
Especially when it was given to Kyrie, and Kyrie has been very outspoken lately about the systematic racism that he endured while in Boston.
Right.
So, I mean, it stinks that the Nets had a pretty stellar beat up on my Celtics. The Celtics only won one game during the playoff run.
Correct.
And that's being usurped by everything else that's going on in Boston right now.
Agreed.
But I don't know that anyone's really surprised about what's going on in Boston at the moment.
No, it seems like there's been some type of discord all season long. Like even when everyone was healthy, you guys were still struggling a little bit. But I do want to say we saw some vintage Tristan Thompson, but only twice.
We did.
Only twice. Let's see. In game 2, he had 15 points and 11 boards.
Yep.
And then in game 3, the game that you guys actually won, he had 19 points and then 3 boards. But to finish out last night on game 5, Tatum had a fantastic performance.
Yes, he did.
Even Fourier seemed to stand out a little bit in this. And I think that's just because Jaylen Brown was injured. So do you think they're going to do any adjusting with their lineup? Do you anticipate to see Marcus Smart or Kemba Walker there next year?
I don't know.
Okay.
Honestly, I heard rumors at the beginning or in January of Kemba being with the Mavs. Personally, as a Hornets fan, I'd love to have Kemba back in Charlotte, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
But I really am still intrigued by the idea of Kemba with the Mavs.
That is.
I feel like that'd be a really good fit still.
I feel like that's kind of that they're missing Seth Curry this year. That's what I think they're missing in their offense, and Kemba could fill that role. And
then we've also got LeBron, who even when Kemba was a Hornet, wanted to play with Kemba. He was doing everything he could to get him even when he was with the Cavs. So, yeah, I think the road is pretty much Kemba's oyster. I think it's going to be kind of his make it or break it this next coming season. The issue with him leaving the Celtics would be Kemba still has 2 years and $74 million left on his contract.
Oh, I see.
So,
to pick that up.
Right. Who's going to pick that up? And I mean, I know, and you know, and anybody who pays attention to basketball, halfway knows that Kemba's still honestly recovering and recuperating from the stem cells that were injected. And honestly, what powerhouse players having a great year this year? This season.
I think the way that the season was condensed, they probably should have shortened it a little bit more. Is just my opinion. Everybody, I think we're seeing the injuries, we're seeing the fatigue, and I think they should have shortened it a little bit more. But
exactly.
You guys played well. You handed out some very key losses, and
yes.
While I don't think Brad Stevens was the problem, congratulations to him on his new position.
Exactly.
Let everybody know where they can find you and where they can follow you, and we'll see you back as soon as possible.
Thank you. And I am on the NBA Carousel whenever needed. And I'm also on Facebook, on Reddit. You can also find me when we're doing the NFL Carousel on the NFL Carousel as well.
Yes.
And I hope you have a great night.
Thanks, Jen. We'll see you soon. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Jay Nelson, who's covering the 76ers.
Hey, what's going on?
How you
doing all right, doing good. I stepped out for a couple of minutes to cover the Sixers. I'm at work right now, but
Appreciate
But
you
yeah,
jumping on. I know how busy that is. So the big news is Joel Embiid has a small meniscus tear. So so he's ruled out. He's ruled out for this game that's going on right now. Who our good friend James Tatum is at, and but he's not ruled out for the playoffs. So I think, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to put a sleeve on it and just try and play through it, or what do you think is going to happen?
I think they may try to play through it. I think that well, he's ruled out of tonight. I think they're gonna put it in Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons' hands to see if they can close out the Wizards. They should be able to. If it gets to if it gets to a game 6, they may try to rush him back. If it definitely gets to a game 7, they may try to rush him back.
I absolutely agree. I do think they have the ability to beat the Wizards in this game with or without Joel. There was a time period where, remember when he hyperextended his knee during the season and he was out for like 6 weeks. So, and during that time, they still won games. Now I know the playoffs are different, but I don't think the Wizards quite have the bench depth that Philadelphia has. So you expect them to close it out tonight?
They should be able to finish them out tonight. I expect a raucous Philadelphia crowd, but you know what? It's going to be either on Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris. I know there had been criticism concerning last game because some people were saying, like, how come Doc Rivers didn't pull Ben Simmons late in the game, because he went like 4 of 8 from the free throw line,
Oh, right.
And it may get to the point where, you remember Hack-a-Shack? They did Hack-a-Shack, then they did Hack-a-Jordan, DeAndre Jordan, and they may go to Hack-a-Simmons. If the game's in close, they may go to Hack-a-Simmons. Like, don't get me wrong, DPOY, quite possibly. I like the way he's improved and everything this year. He still can't hit free throws for nothing. But that's something he's got to work on. But I also agree with Doc Rivers. Ben Simmons is one of your main guys. You live with him, you die with him.
Absolutely. No, he's improved so much this season. And I think that difference maker was Doc Rivers. Now you got to hit up your personal trainer and figure out what's going on with your shot, man.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he still don't got no jumper, but did he improve in other areas? Yes, he did, Absolutely. And I mean, you got Tobias Harris out there tearing it up, and then Embiid's having an MVP season. But you know what? Tonight's going to be the test. Can they close these boys out without Embiid? It's going to be on Harris. It's going to be on Simmons. So, I expect them.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was going to say I expect them to win by 10.
Okay. In game 4, they ended up losing to the Wizards, but it was only by, 8 points right there. So it was 114 to 122, and Washington came out on top. But what I thought was interesting, to make up for Embiid being out, they had Hill and Maxey in rotation. And I really like Maxey on that squad. I've been impressed. And even Hill. Like Hill was
George
on
Hill
OKC,
used to be one of y'all.
He was on OKC earlier this season, and then he joined the Sixers, and I really like that fit. So they're just gonna have to figure out exactly what rotation works together as they try and let Embiid rest. But I've been impressed. I think the Sixers still are gonna stand the test of time.
Yes, absolutely. But what they need to do is they need to finish these boys off tonight so you can get Embiid a little bit more rest.
Agreed.
And before the next series kicks off.
I completely agree. Well, Jay, do you know who y'all play next if y'all come out ahead on this series?
The winner faces the winner of ATL New York.
Oh, okay. So likely Atlanta, but we don't know for sure, but likely Atlanta. So definitely need Embiid healthy for that series. Atlanta is looking like an extremely high-powered offensive team, and we knew that, but they're looking like a really great defensive team as well.
Yes, they are. They are. And they're gonna need Embiid 100% for that series. I guarantee you.
Absolutely. Well, Jay, thank you so much for taking time while you're at work. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and we'll see you back next week.
All right. You can catch me on Twitter at NuttyNell13, NELLINEL13. Also, you can catch me here on the NBA Carousel every week. You can also catch me on the Sip Off, hosted by Megan Price every week. I also have started doing live commentaries and for visual dramatics as VisD Productions on Roku. I've done 2 already. I'm going to come up with another one this week. I'm also a staff writer for them. And those are projects I got going on right now. Shout out Craig Davis, shout out Marshall Hill, my Conventional Kings fam. See y'all next week.
Thanks, Jay. All
Thanks.
right, guys, we're going to go ahead and swing over to a team that has been giving it to the Lakers. We have Jordan covering the Phoenix Suns and also the Denver Nuggets this week. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, Megan.
How you doing?
I'm good, considering both of my teams won yesterday.
Right, fantastic wins.
And we'll start with the Suns, of course, because that's the team I mostly cover. I was really surprised in how they came out. I mean, they took it to the Lakers. Their defense came to play. You gave up 10 points in the second quarter. I mean, I know it helped that Davis wasn't playing, but the fact of the matter is we played defense last night.
Absolutely. And then at that, it looked like, not just y'all's second string, but y'all's third string was playing defense and giving it to them.
Well, we certainly were. But the thing is, you look at the starters for the Lakers, it was mostly LeBron James. He ended up with about 20 or 38 points. But the fact of the matter is it was only 35. Excuse me, it was about 28 points, and 35 of them were from the starters. So if you can limit the Lakers starters to 35 points, you're going to win most of those games. It doesn't matter about your bench, the bench of the Lakers. Limiting a starting rotation to 35 is unbelievable.
Definitely. I think that you guys, even going into game 2, or no, it was, let me see, look. Game 4, when y'all came out ahead on that, I was looking at the stats on that, and just you look at what Phoenix has. Booker had 17, Ayton had 14, CP3 had 18, Payne had 13, and Crowder had 17. That was a big game for Crowder. We usually don't see that type of point production from him. And then you get over to LA, and their stats, all you have is Davis had 6 points, James had 25, Gasol had 12, and Kuz had 11. Like, they really don't have a whole lot of bench depth. I see you guys closing this series out probably next game.
I do too. I mean, really, if you look at the Lakers, it's LeBron James and Anthony Davis. If both of them are not healthy, you don't have much. I mean, I know Kuzma is a great bench player, but and they have Drummond, but other than that, they really don't have anything. And unfortunately for them, it looks like, I would agree, they're going to close this thing out on the road against the Lakers in LA. And if they do that, it'll be the first time they advance past the first round since 2010, which was the last time the Suns actually made the playoffs.
Very interesting. I wonder how Drummond feels about sitting out in Cleveland and then coming over here and having hardly any production. The only game that he had any production in so far was game 2, and he had 15 points. So I wonder, that's an interesting question. I wish I could ask him that question. Like, was it worth it? Was it worth sitting out to go to the Lakers?
Well, you did end up in the playoffs. So at that point, yeah, it was worth it. But I'm sure he expected them to be a top 3 or 4 seed, and that didn't quite happen.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's jump over to Denver real quick. That you guys had a very interesting game last night. You ended up beating out Portland 147-140, but in overtime. Seems like Dame time turned up in that third quarter.
He really did. Well, and in the overtime. I mean, the Nuggets were ahead 9 in the first overtime. There is a question that I have about his tying shot in overtime, the first overtime. I think Austin Rivers got called for a shooting foul. We ended up challenging that, and the challenge to me was successful, except for the fact that they called it a foul, which I'm not sure how you could go back and say that was a foul, but they called it unsuccessful. But the fact of the matter is Damian Lillard took over for the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, we tried everybody on him with Austin Rivers. We have Aaron Gordon, who's one of our better defenders, but nobody could stop Dame time. I mean, he's unbelievable. He's one of the better shooters in the league. I mean, I would say Steph Curry's better than him, but watching last night, I'm not sure I would say that now.
His stat line ended up finishing with 55 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds. So, I mean, just an astronomical stat line. If you're looking at Portland, like if you guys put Portland out, what do you think what type of adjustments do they need to make over there?
Well, luckily, we'll play the Suns if we do advance. And the fact of the matter is, it's the perimeter defense that has been killing us all season. It killed us last night. You saw the shots that Damian Lillard was putting up. I mean, some of them, I'm like, there's no way he's going to make it. And it goes in. You play great defense on him, and he still makes it. But it's definitely perimeter three-point shooting. And we know the Suns have that, especially since I've been covering them. They've got Booker. They have CP3. They have Torrey Craig, too, an ex-Nugget. Right. They do have shooters. So that is a concern, especially if you go on to the next round.
You know what I was surprised with last night, or not surprised because he's been great all year, but this was probably the first game that he really stepped up in the playoffs. That was Montez Morris. He had an incredible night last night. He had 28 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. I would like to see him have a few more rebounds, but great point production right there.
He definitely played well off the bench, but I will say I wouldn't say he almost cost us the game, but if he would have sank 2 free throws, then Damian Lillard wouldn't have that 3 at the end. But the other question I have with the Denver Nuggets going forward, Morris played great, don't get me wrong, is why didn't they foul Damian Lillard? You know he's going to go for 3. You foul him, you make him go to the line and shoot 2 free throws, and you play the foul game. Right. But you're definitely right. Morris had a great game off the bench. If not for him, who knows where this game would have gone? It could have easily been a loss. The Nuggets were up 20, and then they cut it down to, to tie the game and go into overtime. And Morris off the bench gave us energy. Again, I don't know if we win that game without him because of his 28 points.
Absolutely. So now that you guys got a win, and the series is 2-3, what do you expect? When is the next game, and what do you expect to happen?
The next game is tomorrow night in Portland. We played such a bad game in game 4, and I think even Mike Malone said we played soft. So it is a hard place to play in Portland, but you really have to shut down Damian Lillard. I don't know if that's double teaming him, but if you double team him, then CJ McCollum is open for a 3, or Carmelo Anthony. It's really a tough task. I think, honestly, put Gordon on him the whole game, make him shadow him, because we saw in one of the losses in Denver, Damian Lillard couldn't shoot over Gordon in the second half. So I think putting Gordon on him, because he is the best defender we have, you put him on him, I'm not sure he's going to go off for 55 points. If that doesn't work, double team him. But then again, the problem is they have shooters. I just think we have to cover the perimeter. Don't let them have 2s. 2s aren't going to kill you. 3s are.
Definitely. And you know what I think? I also think that while, yes, you do need to try and cut down Dame's shooting, I think Dame, Luka, and Trey are kind of all in that same category on their abilities and shooting. So as you see, you can score, you can drop 60 points, but you're not going to win the game by yourself. So if you shut down all the pieces around him, if you shut down CJ, if you shut down Covington, and if you shut down Melo, then what do they have? Because they don't play defense. So, go ahead and let Dame get his shots in, because he's going to anyway. So you may not even want to waste your energy on that. But if you shut down the pieces around him, 60 points ain't winning an NBA game.
No, it's not. But also on the contrary, that's what Portland did to Jokic in the games they won. They shut down Jokic. So I think you do have a point there. If we shut down the rest of the team and let Dame have his 60 points, you obviously aren't going to win the game, because you need the other teammates to get involved.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jordan. And we will see the end of these 2 series very soon. We'll be able to wrap that up on Monday. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and we'll see you back next week.
Thanks, Megan. Of course, you can see me here on the NBA Carousel usually every Monday. We did it Wednesday because of the holiday, but you can follow me at Sports Scoop 1 on Twitter, as well as check out my blog at sports-scoop.com.
Thanks, Jordan. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and shoot back over to the East. We have Cool McCain covering the Milwaukee Bucks. Hi, Cool.
What's going on, Megan? How's it going?
It's going really well. So you guys had probably the easiest series out of the playoffs, is what it looks like. You guys did a complete sweep. And how do you feel about all that?
I feel good.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I know game 1 kind of had us nervous. Like, is it going to happen with Miami again? Even though you guys took the win, it was in overtime and it was only by 2 points and it was a low scoring game. But the rest of the series, I mean, you guys just looked incredibly dominant.
Well, that's the thing. You need a little adversity, right? So the best adversity is when you can still find a way to win the game, because that puts you on notice, and then you still get that W in the win column. So that's pretty much what game one felt like. It kind of shut a lot of people's mouth that everyone was saying, Milwaukee's soft. When they get in the playoffs, they don't have enough spunk. They're not going to be able to do it. And Miami beat them last year and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? As I've been telling everyone all year, this is not last year's team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I think that a lot of teams, and my team included, the Spurs, that we were really affected by COVID, and we were affected by this compact season. We had injuries, we were plagued with COVID, and a lot of other teams had that same problem. And while Giannis did have a minor injury, you guys, and Drew also, he had a couple of minor injuries as well. Other than that, you guys have been healthy and dominant all year long. But we got round 2 coming. You got Brooklyn.
Well, I'll say this. It's true that we weren't as bad off as some of the other teams as far as injuries go. But I will say that, honestly, we had some games missed, and now we're without Dante DiVincenzo for the rest of the playoffs due to him being injured. So that's an important cog that we're missing. But if that's the only person that we're missing, I still feel confident that other guys should be able to step up and take some of those minutes, like a Jeff Teague, and some of the other guys that we have. So that shouldn't be too much of a difficulty for us. I actually honestly think sliding into that third slot was probably the best thing for us.
I agree.
As far as the first round went. So that worked out. As far as the Nets go, I'm going to say what I've been saying. They're going down. They don't have an inside presence, and they're not going to be able to stop our second chance shots. We're going to bang the ball into our bigs. PJ Tucker is going to take turns with Giannis and maybe one other guy with guarding Kevin Durant. Once you have Kevin Durant, and no one's going to stop Kevin Durant, so I'm not saying that. But once you have Kevin Durant with someone on him that's going to actually play defense, you're not going to have him leak off to try to guard anyone else. You're going to take Drew Holiday. You're going to decide if he's going to play on Kyrie or if he's going to play on Harden. That's another guy that you're not worried about doubling. If he gets beat, he's just going to have to get beat. Right. You're not going to stop him every time, but those are good defenders. You also have Chris Middleton. Whoever he doesn't take, Chris Middleton can take. So you have players on the Bucks that can guard the big three one-on-one. Not saying they're going to stop them, but they can do better than anybody else is going to be able to do.
I absolutely agree. I'm very excited for this matchup. This is probably the one I'm looking forward to most in round 2. And I want to shout out a former Spurs player who has actually gotten those minutes since DiVincenzo has been injured. Brian Forbes has had 2 really awesome games. He had 22 points in game 4, and he also had 22 points in game 2. So congratulations to him. I love to see Spurs doing well no matter where they go.
And I left that for you because I know you were going to want to shout him out. So that's why I didn't mention him. Absolutely.
I love me some Brian Forbes. Yeah.
Hey, I'm loving him right now myself. I will say this.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'll answer that question because actually that's where I was going. When you can put the ball in the bucket in the paint against a team that doesn't have a dominant defensive presence in the paint, the answer to that question is yes, you can put the ball in the goal. Mm-hmm. What the question should be is, are the Nets going to be able to shoot enough jump shots to be able to win this game? Because at the end of the day, they'll get some layups, they'll get some floaters, they'll get some shots inside, but a lot of their points is going to have to come from the perimeter. Right. Are they going to be able to score more from the perimeter than the Bucks are going to be able to score from the interior with mixing in the perimeter? Look at the play of the two teams. The Bucks will go inside. The Bucks will feed the ball inside. Right. You look at the bigs that the Nets have, and let's be honest, that's a mismatch. And if you don't say that's a mismatch, then you don't know anything about basketball.
I agree. Period. And don't get me wrong, Blake Griffin has been playing well since he's gotten to Brooklyn. I give him that. And he's done well off the bench. And I didn't think he had me fooled. I didn't even think he could dunk anymore. But he proved me wrong. But as far as the test of time, I think Bucks have more bench depth. And then, they say defense wins championships. And I think that's going to be the difference in this series. Nets have no defense.
I cannot agree with you more. And again, I'm not saying it's going to be like 4 or 5 games. I think it's going to be a good solid 6-7 game series. Right. It's going to go long.
It's going to go the test of time, 6 or 7. I agree. Yeah. Probably 7.
I can see if one team can get, up 3-2 and, you get to the sixth game and then you have that and you use that momentum to go ahead and close it out. I can see that possibly happening, but definitely 6 or 7 games. And not that the Nets won't win games. Here's the thing. We've seen it in the Nuggets series. We've seen it in the Grizzlies series. We've seen it in the Lakers series. We've seen it in all the series. When you realize that you have no chance to win a game, and you normally don't realize that until about halfway through the fourth quarter, you go ahead and you say to yourself, hey, it is what it is. This game is over. Nets in 5, biggest joke I've ever heard. And I wish we could see who you were, because it's great that you're saying.
Nate. It's Nate, okay, Nate. From our chat.
All right. So Nate, let me let you know this, buddy. When game 6 comes, just make sure you're available where I can reach you.
Definitely. I love it.
Because that's the biggest joke I've ever heard. We're not even going to do that with you, buddy. No, not today. Not any day.
No. Okay. Well, cool. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and we'll definitely see you back next week.
Absolutely. I'll be back, Nate.
Love it.
So you can find me playcallersportstalk.com. You can register there. Check out my other show. You also can find me on the Sip Off, hosted by the one and only Megan Price. Also here on the NBA Carousel. Obviously, normally on Monday nights, like the last I guess said, but will change this week. And on Twitter and on Instagram at Cool McCain.
Thanks, Cool. We'll see you next week. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and take it back to the West. We have Kevin covering Memphis.
Hi, Megan.
How are you?
I'm all good. It's fine.
Awesome. So you guys got a win in game 1, but Utah was short Donovan Mitchell. So it's just kind of looking like, not that you guys didn't play great. You had a great season, but it's looking like your season is coming to an end, quite possibly this evening. If not this evening, probably the next game. Not that you guys aren't great. It just looks like that bench depth over in Utah is more of a complete team, but you guys are growing. Talk to me about the last couple of games.
I should say Utah has got some great 3-point shooters. Talking about the bench depth, yes, they have got a really good bench depth, but where we have lagged is containing those 3-point shots. They have been 44, 44, and 50 in the past 3 matches. That is a 3-point percentage which they have. And also they have always made sure that Jonas Valanciunas and Dylan Brooks stay in the foul triple. So in the past 3 matches, their defensive duties have increased, but also the frequency of the fouls has been increased. So they are committing a lot of fouls, because of which most of the times we are looking to just keep rotations going on. And as I said earlier, we were dependent on Dylan Brooks, and I was pretty confident that he would be guarding Donovan Mitchell, but it's just that Mike Conley has gone back to his playoff form, which we saw last time in the bubble as well. And he has turned from a hero to a villain for us right now. Whatever might be the legend for him in the Grizzlies, he's a villain for us right now.
Right. And I think that's crazy, because this series is with his former team, pretty much his franchise team that he, played majority of his career with. Great to see him doing well. Kind of just like how I shouted out Forbes, former Spur. Like, you love to see him doing well and going on with their career, even though they're not with your team anymore. What I liked about the last 2 games, game 3, the score was 121 to 111. And then game 4, the score was 120 to 113. Those are not blowouts. Like, you guys were competitive. Now, it wasn't exactly the outcome that you wanted, but you guys were absolutely competitive. So if there was one piece that you could add to Memphis, what would it be?
One piece that would add to Memphis, probably someone who can take more defensive duties, because we have been a lot more dependent on Dylan Brooks after his breakout, but before his breakout as well, he was a really good defensive player. I really want someone who can do 5-on-1 defense. Valanciunas is busy on Gobert. Dylan Brooks is one or the other time covering either Donovan Mitchell or Mike Conley, or sometimes Bogdanovic. Ja Morant is offensive mastermind. He drives the lanes at his will, and he has been doing this regardless it's a playoff game or a regular season. But he has lacked in 3-point shooting as well. We saw him hitting threes, but still, that scoring spree which he gets while hitting threes is still lacking. So our offense is really great. Jalen Jackson Jr. is great. We have got really good players. It's that core is settled. It's same as Cleveland. It's settled. They are on a more higher curve. They have burst out it more earlier than expected. Now the main thing is that they need some very important pieces. Mainly, they want someone who can defend really well, because there is something which has been in the earth, and I have seen it, and I was really disgusted that I was so polarized towards Dylan Brooks, and I should have seen that coming. That Mike Conley is there, and he can get on fire anytime he wants, and he has proved it this series as well.
And that's the thing about shooting. As players age, defense is usually the thing to go, but their shot doesn't go anywhere. Like Mike Conley still has that shot. So, like you said, he still has the ability to get hot offensively at any point in time.
Any
I
point.
definitely think they need some defensive help. I am impressed with Jonas though. He is a great player. And I do like that matchup with him and Gobert. I don't think Gobert has quite done what he wanted to do in this series. I mean, he's played decent, but I don't think he's done exactly what he wanted to do in this series.
No one has been more physical on Rudy Gobert than Jonas Valanciunas, and the whole season people have might have underrated Jonas Valanciunas, but he's someone who has grown damn impressively. Uh, he
Absolutely.
has just he's just went away from everyone's eyes, but he has got a point of proof here, and next year people are going to watch him, and he is going to be in eyes of everyone.
I absolutely agree. And I want to shout out this stat line real quick. John Morant in game two had 47 points, 7 assists, and 4 boards, just in a ridiculous offensive night for him. And I think we're going to see more of this type of point production and assist production out of him coming next season. So, Kevin, go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you. And if we have an opening next week, we'll absolutely have you back on next week.
Sure. Yes, you can find me on the Kev Pod that is available on Spotify, Anchor, or Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasting, any podcasting platforms. You can find me on the Kev Pod on Twitter. You can find my blogs on kevblog.ml, which is where I regularly post my writings and whatever observations I have. Other than that, you can always find me on NBA Carousel, hoping for another opening here as well, and to other sideline sports things as well. So, yes, looking forward to an amazing playoffs.
Thank you so much, Kevin. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and keep it in the East. We have Steve covering the Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards. Who do you want to talk about first, Steve?
Well, let's get the Wizards out of the way real quick since they're playing right now.
Awesome.
And the 76ers were nice enough to let Joel Embiid get hurt and not play for a little bit, so the Wizards could get their one game. They're actually playing close in this game. Bradley Beal already has 28. Russell's up to 22, 5, and 7 right now. Not checking or anything, but yeah, right now it was a close game. It was 82-78 when I just looked. They just went to commercial because, of course, I'm watching the game.
Right.
But it's been a nice back and forth game. Obviously, without Joel Embiid, it gives Washington a chance a little bit. They've still been implementing the Haka Ben strategy,
Right.
though he has made a little bit more of his free throws than he has in the past. But I think most people thought going into this series that obviously Philadelphia is the better team, which obviously they are, and they will win the series most likely this evening, even without Joel Embiid. And they'll take care of business. But really, it's just a nice story for Washington with how they started the year to make the playoffs and to get a game. And they've kind of shown that with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, instead of trying to trade those guys and starting over, you need to bring in the people that those guys want around them, and kind of make a run at this thing. Though the top 3 teams in the East are obviously very good, and the Hawks are coming on, and we'll see if the Knicks can do something again next year and still be in the playoffs, because obviously they weren't expected to be in the playoffs this year. Right. But those top 3 probably aren't going anywhere for at least a couple of years. So, they got some work to do for them, but it was a great, really, all in all, and I'm talking like I'm assuming they're going to lose. All in all, this was a great season for Washington this year, right, to get to the playoffs, to win a game against the heavily favored 76ers, And without Joel Embiid, I still think Philly's going to have enough to beat him. But like I said, Bradley Beal has 28 through 3, he had 21 at halftime. So he's probably going to get 35 to 40 points this game. Russ will have he'll probably finish with 29, 32, something like that himself, and probably 9 rebounds and 12 assists or something like that. Just normal Russell Westbrook numbers, ho hum, whatever. But really, I did kind of chalk this up as the 76ers will win, and we all kind of want to move on to a Eastern Conference Finals worthy matchup between the Nets and the Bucks that we're about to get next round.
And so if you guys, because it's such a close game, so if you guys manage to win this game, do you think Philly rushes Embiid back, or do you think they try to finish out the series without him?
It's a great question. With that meniscus, it's not as bad as having an ACL or an MCL, but it's still something that you have to be concerned about. I always love when they list people as day-to-day, because who really knows what day-to-day means, right? Just if he wakes up and feels good, is he going to give it a shot, right? I personally think that if Washington does find a way to win this game, that game would be back in Washington, obviously. And I think they would not rush him back. Actually, I think they would let it ride again, because, again, unless this game gets, crazy out of hand, it looks like it's going to be a close game throughout. So if they show that they can play them in a 2-possession game all the way through, back and forth type of game, and let's say Bradley Beal hits a crazy shot or something like that, and Washington wins at the buzzer, I think Philadelphia would not rush him back, because he's too important to the long-term longevity and long-term success of that franchise right now, to rush him back for a game 6 in Washington, where if you give him that extra couple days, if by chance Washington did win and force a game 7, it would be back in Philly, and then he could come back and play. But again, even without him, Philly has the lead. So, if they do have to, obviously Washington's not dead yet, so they have a chance. But I do think that they're going to be extremely cautious with Joel Embiid, as they should. Right. Obviously, his health long term is definitely worth more than one particular game, in this playoffs.
Absolutely agree. So let's go ahead and jump over to that matchup that you were alluding to, the Nets and the Bucks. So you guys ended up finishing off the Celtics last night. Kind of much anticipated, honestly. And then we've had some news about Boston today, and so obviously they're going to try and make some adjustments there. How did you feel about how Brooklyn performed in this series?
Well, I think for the most part they did what we thought they were going to do. Excuse me. I think they did what we all thought they were going to do. And, obviously you have Harden and Durant and Kyrie, and they all had great games. Harden had a triple-double last night. I think they're 34, 10, and 10. And 34, 10, and 10. And, KD had 24 and Kyrie had 25. And, it's kind of be expected. And the only reason that this wasn't a sweep without Jaylen Brown for Boston is Jason Tatum, dropped a 50 burger on him in a game, and, just was out of his mind, even though he played great this entire series. But, they kind of did what I expected them to do, win the series in 5. And this sets up game 1, which will be Saturday night, 7:30 on TNT, which will be awesome. Maybe you worry about the Bucks having too much time off. Maybe they'll be a little bit rusty after how great they played. So maybe the Nets could take game 1 and get a little confidence going. But my concern, last night was a little bit better. They only gave up 103 or 109, excuse me, because the previous 2 games they gave up 126 and 125. And that's still my concern. And it's great when you score 141, you could give up 126 and still win pretty comfortably. But it still concerns me if you're going to give up between 115 and 120 points every night. Eventually that jumper's not going to fall. And this is the series that I really look forward to.
Same.
Because will they play Giannis, completely just take away his lane and just let him shoot? And if Giannis makes jump shots, then you just got to tip your cap to him.
Mm-hmm.
But how and then Giannis on Durant, obviously he has the length that could give Durant some issues. Middleton has length. If they decide to put him on Harden, Holiday also has some length. They obviously have the great shooting of Lansing Sexton's own Bryn Forbes. I know you like him, former Spur. So the Bucks, and you forget because it seems like it's been like 3 weeks since they played, but they looked really, really good against the defending Eastern Conference champions, Miami Heat. And the Heat aren't great, but the Bucks still looked really good. So it's gonna be a great series. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the Nets on paper, player for player, obviously has more talent where they should be able to win. But man, I'm worried, especially after last year and how the Bucks prematurely left the playoffs and the kind of the slack that Giannis got for not being able to get him out of the, farther to the playoffs and all that stuff. Yeah, playing with a little chip on his shoulder. And, it's great to have a chip on your shoulder, but if you're not that good, it doesn't really matter. Well, when you have a chip on your shoulder and you're really, really good and extremely talented, it makes it all the more dangerous. So that's going to be a great series. Truthfully, I think the Bucks are going to win in 7. I think it's going to be a great back and forth series, but I actually do think the Bucks are going to win in 7. If I'm wrong, I get to talk about the Nets longer on here. So I guess I hope I'm wrong, but I'm definitely looking forward to the series. But yeah, Saturday night at 7:30 on TNT will be game 1. And last check, Philly was up 6 still, 86-80. And I'll see when they get back from commercial here as I'm half watching it still. I think the Bucks Nets are going to be that's the series that I'm really looking forward to. Besides obviously still watching, last night and tonight, the West having all those game 5s that actually, mattered, where the East was kind of locked up. Everybody kind of knew the teams that were going to move ahead, I think. So, I think everybody's just kind of doing what they're supposed to do right now. And we're just like, all right, let's just get to the Bucks and Nets.
Definitely. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Let everybody know where they can find you and follow your own projects. And I'm sure we'll see you back next week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, easiest way to find me is on Twitter at All Eyes on You, just the letter U, hoops. There'll be a link right to my basketball website. From there, my Flagrant Friends NBA podcast, we actually shoot it Tuesday night. So there is a new episode posted on there right now where we talk about the playoff matchups from last night as we were watching them, and also tonight. But that's the easiest way. And then, right back here on the NBA Carousel, talking about any team that I might have to be talking about, which right now in the playoffs is about to be just the Nets because the Wizards are about to be done. But it'll be the Nets then for a while.
Thank you so much, Steve. We'll see you next week.
All right. Have a great night.
You too. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and shoot over to the West with one of the most interesting series so far. We have Chris, Couch Coach Powell, covering the Clippers.
Hey, Megan. Hey, Megan, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I know that's right. You guys, okay, so you came back and you won those games. The interesting thing about this series is no one has won a home game. Is that right?
Yeah. Dallas won the first 2 in LA, and then the Clippers end up winning the last 2 games in Dallas. So
right.
Yeah.
What we talked about last week was shutting down the pieces around Luka, and that's absolutely what you guys did. Hardaway only had 4 points in game 4, and then he only had 12 points in game 3. Like, that's exactly what you needed to do. Like, you guys handled business. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's weird. I tell you, this is a difference a week make. I mean, it was getting a little, Cancun on 3. The season is over. People want us to move to out of Staples Center. It's been a crazy week.
Right. So, and I've been more impressed with Kawhi's production as well since game 1. Even though he had 26 points and 10 boards in game 1, in game 2 he ended up having 41 points, 4 assists, 6 boards. In game 3 he had 36 points, 8 boards, and then in game 4 he had 29 points and 10 boards. So for me, that just says that he stepped up that production that we know he's capable of. Because in my opinion, even though, I'm still a little hurt he left my team, I still think that he's absolutely the best two-way player in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely has shown that he's probably, when you think about it in a totality as far as NBA playoffs, consistently wise, he has been the best player in the playoffs thus far. So yeah, you finally he's kind of getting back into that groove, and you seen, like you said, in the production in these last 4 games, definitely the last 2 games where he just pretty much just took over.
Right, absolutely. And also want to shout out PG, who seems like he's really coming together in this playoff series. He's been consistent all season, so it's not like he's doing anything different. I think we all know he played great all season long, and even through some injury in his foot, and he played through it and continued on in the season. And so now we just need to see that production follow through in these playoffs, and it seems like it's happening right now.
Yeah, and you see, like, in the difference between game 1 and game 2. Well, the first 2 games in LA, then the 2 games in Dallas, he became a little bit more aggressive. As far as he took it to the cup a little bit more times, then taking those perimeter shots like he did at home in games 1 and 2. So you see more of the progression of him being a little bit more assertive and just being more aggressive. So yeah, you're definitely seeing a difference.
And I think one of the most important ththings that you guys did was taking Beverly off Luka. Beverly is not the same defender that he was 3 or 4 seasons ago. He's still able to get some point production, but he's just not that elite defender that he used to be. And as I said earlier, when players age, defense is usually where you see them wane. They're not going to lose their shot. That shot is going to stick with them until probably the day they die. But that defense is where they're going to slow down. And unfortunately, we're starting to see the decline of Patrick Beverly.
Yeah, and you look at just and I think they finally kind of seen the light of Pat Bev. And it's one of the things where with him, he's been on somewhat of a decline for several years. Like you said, like going back 3-4 years ago, he was considered like a great defender, but it's really has fallen off tremendously. And you can't put him on Luka. Like that was, that's a mismatch in itself.
That's the matchup Luka wanted, and y'all saw how he
And you look how crazy how they looked in game 2, like in the first 2 games where they was like kind of like just dumbfounded by like what Luka was doing. I'm like, what's the problem?
Right, absolutely. No, I agree. And Jackson has had some good production as well. In game 2, he had 15 points. In game 3, he had 16 points. And in game 4, he had 15 points. So, just great production off the bench right there. And then Batum has had a few decent games. Morris, we finally saw an appearance of Morris in game 3. It's been a while.
He came alive. Yeah.
It's been a little while since we saw him do anything. So tonight, game 5, you're back in LA, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's the late game. I'm very excited to see this game. And what do you expect out of this game?
I definitely think the Clippers are going to take care of business. I think this situation, obviously the first 2 games was just like a wash. I tell you, the really turning point of this team was in game 3 when they were down by 17. And I think that's when there was like, all right, we need to stay focused, do what we got to do. And ever since then, they've been pretty much lights out. I definitely see the role players stepping up as we talked about earlier, as far as like Batum doing his thing. You see, Reggie Jackson, you'll see Rondo probably get some action. I know he had 20 minutes last game, so you'll see some production from that. And I definitely think the Clippers are going to take care of business. The only thing you got to really watch out for the Mavs, just making sure that their role players continue to struggle, like Tim Hardaway Jr. we talked about earlier,
right.
Him, Dorian Finney-Smith. You got to watch out for those guys like Jalen Brunson, Trey Burks, those type of, those performances you kind of want to, and then just to see the help of Luka, to see what he's going to do, with the neck injury, which, I'm not a doctor, but I mean, that's a pretty much, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And, I just have not seen the production out of Porzingis that I've wanted to see. Even on his games where he has done better, it's just not the production that you want to see out of him. And so that's just one of those pieces that you're not exactly worried about shutting down, because it seems like he's shutting himself down.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Chris, and good luck on your game tonight. And let everybody know where they can find you, where they can follow you.
Yes, indeed. You can definitely catch me here every Monday on the Carousel talking about the LA Clippers, the Western Conference champion, particularly, possibly, but and then also you can find me on my podcast on Couch Coach Live. Every Wednesday we'll do that. Every Wednesday at 8:00. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow me on social media on the Couch Coach Live.
Thank you so much, Chris. We'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
Thanks. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead. We have a special guest coming on right now. We have Coach Scott Fields. Hi, Coach. How are you?
Megan, how we doing? Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I hope you're healing up well.
It's been a slow road to recovery, but I've got the foot hanging out here, so we're keeping it elevated, trying to correct that infection. And actually, the 7th, we get to get those pins out finally. So appreciate your kind words.
Yes, sir. So talk to me about the playoffs. What has been your favorite series? What series have you been disappointed in? And what do you expect next?
You know what, Megan, great question. First of all, thanks for having me. You guys are continuing to do an outstanding job here. So to be on here with all the experts and yourself driving it, continue the great work. I'm enjoying the playoffs. I think there's been a lot of intrigue. There's been a lot of side stories. I was a little bit surprised at the lackluster play of the Miami Heat, but yet I also have to give credit to the Milwaukee Bucks and their acquisitions and how they surrounded Giannis to make his life a little bit easier by giving them shooters, as I heard you mention Forbes earlier. Those guys are doing a nice job, and with Holiday, I think they're going to be an intriguing matchup going into that second round. You got to love the play of Portland and Denver last night. Dame did what he does. You got to put some respect on his name. The guy has done it year after year, and he's continuing to step up, even though he just didn't have that second and third guy there to help him, especially going into the first overtime and second overtime, because he hit the big 3-pointers to get him into that position in the first place. So he drops a double nickel, and it's still not close enough. Then you look at Jokic to do what he's doing after Murray went down. I'm sure you guys talked about that as well. It's fun to watch, and of course, I'm out here in Salt Lake City watching the Jazz. But to me, all the games have been great. As an NBA former coach, I'm just concerned with the amount of injuries from the star players. And again, I think from that short turnaround from the bubble, which we're seeing this year. We're not in the bubble anymore, Megan, and it's not the AAU tournament for men. And these guys are traveling, and now we're seeing where role players are having to step up and play and be competitive. And we need to see productivity out of the benches while they're on the road. So there's a lot of intrigue. But yet you look at Luka with his injury, you look at AD with his injury. LeBron is not quite as, at full strength. You can't tell me he's at full strength. No. So, Luka with his neck. I just think, it's a shame that we can't see the stars and the prime time players be at 100% when they need to be peaking. And again, I think that's something that the NBA is going to have to look into to make sure that they give these guys enough rest, because look at it this year, Megan, you've got the Olympics that are going to come up. So your national team participants are also going to get more wear and tear on their body. Who's going to commit to that? And then you just got to love seeing these series play out as they are. So for fans, beautiful stuff.
Right. I absolutely agree. My team personally, the Spurs, we were affected by COVID, and we ended up missing 5 games. And then for the entirety of the rest of the season, we ended up playing 5 games a week. And so I think, with these injuries, I think we're seeing that maybe it should have been a shorter season. I think maybe 60 games, and should have given them at least another month of rest and had them maybe start the season mid-January and still just kind of keep it as now to where we can still start the next season on time. If it were me, that's what I would have done. But I don't think they knew this. I think this is hindsight. We can say this now because we've seen the results. So I think the NBA did the best they could, but definitely have got to give their stars more rest. You touched on something in Portland, and I think that you have a stat line like 55, 6 and 4, and you got to wonder, what would you do different in Portland if you were Stokes?
Well, here's the thing. Coach Stotts has his finger on the pulse. I think he's on a little bit of a hot seat now. They're going to have to, meet some expectations, as is Bood there with Milwaukee, because I feel like if Milwaukee struggles here in this next round, I think he's going to also be on the proverbial hot seat. But what you got to do is at home, your stars are going to be who they are. Your Michael Jacksons are your Michael Jacksons. Who's your Titos, right? So the bottom line is Nurkic is going to have to step up. You've got to get him more involved early. I would think you'd want to see a little more urgency out of Nurkic against Jokic, especially since they were in Denver together and then all of a sudden they let him go. You would think that would give him a little more fuel to his fire to want to step up and compete. But yet, let's also find ways within our offensive set, which I feel like Dame does. He tries to facilitate to get everybody else going. But at home, those role players have got to step up and do a better job and get more engaged offensively quicker to take some of that scoring off. Because what happened is Dame is exerting a lot of energy. And as you saw him, at that elevation in Denver, that's going to be difficult. So you got to keep your eye on those specific little details that are going to ignite everybody else around you. And Dame's just got to have a little bit extra help because, we've all seen CJ. We know what CJ can do. I think a couple of times, I think we need to get CJ a little more involved offensively. So that way, Dame doesn't have to exert as much energy on both ends of the court like he's had to do. And again, I just think it's a phenomenal series because here's two teams that are flat out getting after each other. So it's fun.
It is absolutely fun. I think the direction that I would go if I were in Portland is, you brought up Nurkic, and I think that's an issue. He's hasn't been healthy. I don't know how long it's been since he's had a healthy season. And that sucks. But I think you need to go with somebody that is a more aggressive center. I think you need somebody like maybe Jarrett Allen. I think Jarrett Allen, it might be a good fit over there. He's not aggressive like in his smack talk or anything like that. He's generally kind of a quiet guy, but you're not getting past him.
Yeah, well, you know what? He's got energy. He has a motor. He can protect the rim. He can not, if he doesn't block shots, he's going to change shots, but yet he's also going to trigger that offense and be aggressive. And when you have that motor, give me somebody who can rim run, who can keep up with your backcourt. And your backcourt's going to push that tempo, control
Right.
pace, control space, and to have that guy who can run from rim to rim to put pressure on the defense to get back and yet open it up because he can step out to that short corner. I think it'd be a nice piece. So, I'm sure they're going to be looking at acquisitions like that in the offseason to make sure that they can give them what they need. Because if not, how long can Dame stay loyal and be where he's at in a small market? Because again, a lot of people are like, man, I'm surprised. I can't believe he's doing that. No, he's been doing it consistently for a while, but in a small market and not getting the national attention, how long is Dame going to stay there?
Absolutely. I do think you got to keep your superstar happy. And Dame is absolutely that. I have heard some talk about maybe breaking up CJ and Dame and going with a bigger wing. I don't think personally I would want to break up that duo. I think they like each other too much and I wouldn't want to break it up. But I have heard some chatter about that some.
Well, you got to look at, because if you're going to trade somebody, who are you going to trade that has market value where you're going to get something in return if you lose a guy who can get you buckets like he can? So I think that's why you're hearing the chatter. There's always that kind of talk that's going to happen, especially when you have movable assets that you can get something in return.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on this week. Anytime you have some time to come on, you have an open invite. Really appreciate it. Let everybody know your own projects, where they can find you and follow you, because I know you have a lot going on. And thank you so much.
Oh, Megan, thanks for having me. Thrilled to be on with you guys. I've been blessed because our Coach Scott Fields show is now streaming on TV. We're on the DBNA television network, and we're on every day at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And then, of course, people can also find the Coach Scott Fields show. We have our YouTube channel. We also have us on Facebook Live. And then, of course, you can find me all over social media, whether that be, Twitter, which I got to pick, Megan, I got to pick my Twitter game up. I jumped in too slow. So, and then, of course, we're also on Instagram at Coach Scott Fields. Twitter is just Scott_Fields. So, let's get some follows and let's start building up that Twitter account a little bit. I got to keep up with you young cats.
Thank you so much, Coach. We'll see you again.
Appreciate you. Let's enjoy these NBA playoffs. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We have Bryce Lewis covering ATL and possibly a little bit of Portland.
Yes, sir. Well, what's up, Megan? Glad to be back on the show.
Thank you so much. I know you're on your break. I really appreciate you making time. So you want to talk about ATL first?
Yeah. Currently, we are up 57-50 right now against the Knicks. We just started the third quarter. It's been a very physical game. A couple of favorites already. Knicks are definitely trying to play some bully ball right now to get in the Hawks' head, but right now the Hawks are still playing well. Neither team's not shooting well right now, so that's kind of one of those types of games you expect when you're in a defensive grinded out game like this. So, but if Hawks keep doing what they're doing, I think they should be able to get the win and close out the series.
Absolutely. It seems like you guys have just absolutely shut down the shooting of Julius Randle.
Yeah. I mean, we really came in here with a different game plan. During the regular season, we kind of gave Julius Randle space to work, and I think that's been one of the reasons why he was able to have basically a career year against us, specifically as a team. And in the playoffs, we've been closing out the space. We're using different defenders on him, and we're just making it hard for him. We're not giving him any easy shots. And also, I mean, you can maybe say Randle a little nervous, playoff pressure, New York. That could also play a factor as well. But got to give credit to the Hawks defense. They have played great on Randle. Last game he had his best game of the series, even though we still don't look at it as a great game. And tonight he's played, better, but it's not where you want him to be if the Knicks are going to have a chance.
Right, absolutely. So you expect you guys to finish out the series tonight?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're going to have to start making some shots. That's going to be a big thing for us. If we can start making some shots, that's going to definitely widen the gap. But I expect us to end the series tonight. I definitely think after everything that's been happening in the series too, I think they're definitely ready to end this series as well and just move on to whoever comes out of that Philadelphia-Washington series.
Well, we know it's Philly. We know it's Philly. I love that Westbrook and Beal were able to finally kind of gel together from the midseason and on. And congratulations to them to even making the show. But it's going to be the Sixers that you guys face. And so what do you think you guys have to do to prepare for that series?
It's a different matchup. Obviously, the Knicks, one thing about them is they're outside of Randle and maybe Barrett, and Rose has had a great offensive series, but they're kind of offensively challenged outside of that. Philadelphia has multiple guys who can score the ball, and so we're going to have to be ready for that. Even with Embiid out, I think some people think if it be, because he looks like he's going to miss the start of the series at least, that it may be a cakewalk, but it's not. Danny Green can get hot. Ben Simmons, he can have a big game here or there. Tobias Harris has been the second leading scorer on the team, so we're going to have to definitely, establish what we want to do. I think this is going to be a big series for Trey, not even from a scoring perspective, but from a playmaking perspective, because I expect him to probably throw like Ben and guys like that, super tall, super lengthy guys on him. So his playmaking is going to be very important to get the other guys involved because, I think the other guys are going to be what's going to be the difference if we were able to upset Philadelphia in the next round.
Absolutely agree. That's going to be a really great series. I don't know if Embiid can't play, like let's just say on the off chance Embiid doesn't come back for the series, I don't know if they can beat y'all without him. I do think that they're going to catch some wins because the team is deep, but Embiid is that important to that team. And, they haven't quite found the right, combination of guys to mix in with that because there was a couple of plays out there in the last game that I was like, what are these guys doing? Maxey played decent. Hill played decent, but there was some combination of players on there. I was like, oh man, what are they doing? And I think that's going to have to be where you guys maximize, like because they're going to have home court advantage. So whenever you go into game 1 and game 2, I think you got to at least one of those games.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that we're going to be able to do. Like I said, you never know, again, depending on how Philly plays coming out, again, without Embiid, and I think we should be able to get one of those games. Obviously, it's going to be key for our role players to play better. They haven't played the best on the road, but, you usually hear in the playoffs, role players don't play as well, just, because of the hostile crowd. But I think we should be able to steal one. Obviously, if I'm Atlanta, if Embiid does come back, I want it 2-1, 3-2, something. I need a lead when he gets back. You don't want it tied or trailing. So if that happens, it'll put him in a good spot to be able to come out of that series.
And so if there's been one player in this series, in the Knicks series, that you have been super impressed with besides Trey, who would it be?
Kevin Huerter, a guy that, some people don't, really maybe know on the national stage, obviously. Guy that we drafted a couple years ago. He's part of the core of guys that we have. He's really played well defensively, I think, in the series, and I think that's one of the big reasons why. He's played really well on Rose, He's played really well in Bullock, whatever defensive assignment they've asked him to do. He's also made some big shots. He's not obviously playing a lot of minutes where he's scoring a lot of points, but he does make shots when he's in there. And I think that, a lot of people, depending on how far the Hawks go, may, hear his name more and then understand, like, because, like, we call him Red Velvet here in Atlanta because, he's a fan favorite and, he's a guy who can get hot from three. And he's, like I said, he's one of the best. He's developing into one of the better two-way players in the league.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so let's jump over to Portland right quick before you have to go. Okay, so Denver's up 3-2. Yesterday was a heartbreaking loss for Portland. And if you're Dame, how do you feel like you go into the next game?
Well, I mean, they'll be back at home, so you're gonna have the crowd behind you. I mean, Dame, like he said, even though he had that historic performance, they still lost. And, he's just like, Dame's gonna do what he does. He's gonna just play as hard as he can. He's gonna try to make shots when he can. And really, the biggest thing I think everybody talked about coming out of that game was just the supporting cast. We didn't really get anything from CJ, especially in those overtimes. We didn't get anything from Melo, Covington, and those are guys that we have to count on. And obviously, you hope, Nurkic, he's been fouling out a lot this series because Joker's got him in foul trouble. He's been a big loss, when we lose him because he's another guy we can, pretty much go into the paint and score because when he comes out the game, we're pretty much a perimeter-oriented team. It's just 3-point shots and jumpers the whole time. And that plays right into Denver's hands because they know what we're going to do. It's just obviously Dame's so good that it won't matter. But if everybody else is making their shots and it's like there's only one person that you have to beat, Denver is a team. They're playing as a team. It's not just Joker. It's everybody. Right now, you don't want it to just be Dame and that's it. You need CJ to play better. You need Covington. You need Melo to make some shots. You need all that because they're going to need that if they're going to extend this series to 7 games.
And game 4 and game 1 are those games that we really saw Denver look kind of defeated and really missing Jamal Murray and that playoff experience and that extreme shooting that he has. So do you expect you guys to win this next game? If you're going to, you guys are going to be at home.
Yeah, I expect us to win. I don't think Damian is going to go down in 6 games. I mean, listen, I was listening to what Coach Fields said, and he's right about Terry Stotts. If we lose the series, I don't know about his job security. You heard earlier in the season that if the team doesn't do well, he might be gone because I think a lot of people look at this Portland team and thinks there's too much talent for them to be losing in the first round to a Jamal Murray-less Denver team, and it just feels like something's not right. And so if he wants to keep his job, he has to win these next 2 games because I don't know if it's one of those things where they're a playoff team, but if you're not progressing and getting to that next level, something has to change and you're not going to move Dame or anything. So you're going to probably look at the coach. And so I think they're going to get this. They're going to win game 6, but game 7 is going to be a toss up. And I'm sure it'll be a great game.
Absolutely. Well, Bryce, thank you so much for covering 2 teams and taking some time off of work to go ahead and join the show. Let everyone know where they can find you and they can follow you. And we'll see you back next week.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Brycey_2K. Also Instagram, Bryce_2K. Also, you can go on my website, Brycey2K Sports, if you want to see my articles right now. I'm writing about the Atlanta Hawks during the playoff run right now as well. And also can catch my Sport Jam podcast. We should have a new episode coming out pretty soon in the next couple of weeks as well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for this week. Next week, we'll be back with round 2 expectations and wrap-ups. And also remember to go ahead and watch the WNBA. The WNBA will be taking a break from July 15th to August 15th. So you still have about a month and a half of regular season play. So find a WNBA team to watch. Thanks, guys.